welcome today's guest. He's a Seattle-based street photographer with a passion for the fine arts. He's a killer film photographer, vinyl enthusiast, and not to mention, he just released his first photo book called Sanctuary. Welcome, Matthew Rygh.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It is a beautiful day in sunny Seattle, which those two words usually don't go together. So this is kind of rare, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, it's gorgeous. I live for this time of year here in Seattle. It makes it worth the endless months of gray just for days like this.
Yep, even just 1 or 2 days. I mean, it makes all the difference.
I believe this is what we refer to as fake spring. So I'm ready for a couple days of this, and then we'll probably get plunged into another month of gray, and then it will be springtime.
Literally, when I woke up this morning, I was actually really surprised. I was like, oh, it's sunny. Now it's getting sunnier. The temp went up. I was like, where's the trick here? Because it was great yesterday. I was like, it's probably going to rain or snow today then.
I feel like I'm being manipulated anytime it's sunny out in Seattle. It's like, what's the catch? I feel like you're leading me on to something.
Yeah, weather creating trust issues out here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Traumatized by the weather.
That's Seattle for you, but we get through it.
We do indeed.
One of the first things I wanted to ask you is you're like a really avid vinyl collector. How'd you get into the kind of atmosphere that is vinyl, record players and all the things?
Funny enough about that. So when I went off to college, I moved into my dorm. I was there a couple weeks early because I was working in the dining hall at school, and I was the only person living on my floor at the time other than my RA. So I became pretty close friends with him. Will, my RA, shout out to him. He was showing me his record player. We went down the street to the record store for the first time, and I was like, I'm just gonna get some $1 records to put on my wall as decoration. And so I found the most obscure and random records, spent $10, and we just kind of spent time. I was hanging them up on my walls. He was helping put them up as well. And he was just playing some records while we were doing that. And I was like, maybe I should actually get into this, not just for decoration. Also, like growing up, my dad was born in the early 60s. His family had a lot of records laying around. For Christmas, I believe it was 2018, I finally got a record player. I could actually play the stuff that was hanging on my walls. And I was able to play those and the ones that they'd had laying around since like the 70s. Yeah, I started out, I believe some of the ones that he had were like Fleetwood Mac. He won a copy of A Night at the Opera by Queen off the radio back when it came out.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have that. That's a pretty cool copy. And I don't know, from there, I mean, I was raised listening to like a lot of classic rock. And so it kind of goes hand in hand, you know, records and classic rock. I'd say that makes up a good portion of the stuff that I collect. I love just finding bargains, finding $5 copies of my favorite records. Like I got a $5 copy of, what is it called? Hustlinwithholly by Led Zeppelin. I love that record.
Okay.
But anyways.
That's awesome. So then do you have any rare like pieces in your collection, or who are your favorite artists? You're constantly posting about Frank Ocean, as you should.
Oh, yeah. I love Frank Ocean. Frank Ocean is my favorite, probably just artist in general, regardless of whether we're talking about music or anything else. I actually, if you look behind you, recently I got that copy of Blonde off of his website. Shout out to my good friend Teague Shoop. He texted me at, I believe it was like 8 a.m. and was like, Matt, you got to go to Frank's website right now. He has a rare reissue of Blonde available. You have to get it. And so I hopped on it. I told myself when I got my first job out of college that I was going to spend my first paycheck on the Black Friday edition of Blonde, but then I realized I also had to pay rent, and I opted to do that instead. So I replaced the Black Friday one with the current reissue, which I'm more than happy to do. Saved myself a good $500.
There you go. Oh man, that's so hard when something like exclusive comes out, but then rent gets in the way. I really feel you, but I think you made the right decision. I mean, that's a great album.
Yeah.
I've been listening to because like he has one song on the album. It's just called Chanel, right? Or is it Channel?
It's Chanel. It's not on Blonde, but it's a single. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to that a lot recently. And then I really like Nights. I did listen to... So wait, what's that album called?
Blonde.
Okay, I listened to Blonde, and then there's Nostalgia Ultra. I'm going to listen to that because Blonde's the only one I've listened to because it's the most popular, but I was going to go through his entire catalog. I'm still trying to understand him. Why is he in particularly your favorite artist? I know Beyonce said that when she heard his stuff, it just touched her soul.
Frank Ocean, I feel like, is very much like an artist's artist in terms of like, he makes everything on his own accord when he wants it. He makes it how he wants it to be. You can tell that he makes it for himself first, and then it just by chance is released. I mean, for my photo book, I strictly listened to Blonde when I went out and shot it because it evoked the right feeling that I wanted in my photos. And so, like Blonde in particular is very much like it's a very like nostalgic record. It really taps into a lot of the like, I don't know, I feel like when you're like a teenager, a lot of your emotions are a lot more amplified than they are, say, like now. I mean, I'm only 22, but even still, it's like, it really taps into that and like the thoughts and feelings of that time. And I don't know, it's also just, it's so experimental for when it came out. I could talk about Frank Ocean for so long, but like aside from that, one of my favorite things about him is that he takes the time for himself so he can like live life and then make art that reflects it instead of just like aiming for stuff that will do well on the radio or that will get streams or whatever. It's like, it's very much art in its purest sense. And I respect the hell out of him for that. So
yeah, I'd say that sounds about right because his label wasn't too interested in helping further his career. And so he did a little bit of leaking his own stuff and really proved that he deserved to be where he's at. And he takes really long hiatuses and then comes back out of nowhere. Do you know why that is? I did a general Google search and I was like, why does Frank disappear? And Google doesn't even know why. So I figured some of his top fans might.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I think there's something to be said about, once again, like making stuff on your own accord. And I feel like, at least for me personally, one of the best ways to like make art is to allow yourself the space to just like exist and be a human and then take time afterwards to reflect on it and then make art from that. And I think he's also just very meticulous and he's very much a perfectionist, I feel. I mean, I believe he was supposed to release a record back in like late 2019, early 2020, but then COVID hit and his brother died, and I'm sure just life in general gets in the way of making a lot of things. But I don't know. I think a lot of it just has to do with the busyness of life in general, as well as wanting to make, I don't know, I feel like the best way to say it is like emotionally potent things, and that sort of stuff takes time, you know? So that's my assumption. I don't know. I've never spoken to Frank myself, so I can't say for certain.
I think that was a pretty good answer because, I mean, Google came up with absolutely nothing. It just was blank. It was like, here's his website. We know nothing. So that at least was an answer. So I appreciate that because I just, that was driving me crazy. I'm like, why does he? I figured it was just to, you know, find himself. Because I'm taking a little bit of a social media break myself, and it's been really, really good for me.
I mean, I don't blame the man for not wanting to be in the public eye. That generally does not sound very fun, especially when, I mean, if you take 2 seconds to browse the Frank Ocean subreddit, that place is a cesspool. I don't blame him for hiding from those people.
Yeah, I mean, in the public eye, you almost... When everybody's giving you their opinion and telling you what to do, you almost lose your own voice, whether it's something you notice or something that you don't. It kind of just happens. And so that's what I'm learning with my little detox. So maybe that's what he's kind of doing.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyways, then what does your current vinyl setup look like? Like turntable, speakers and all. Oh,
yeah. So recently I upgraded my whole system. I've been saving up for a while. So originally I had an Audio-Technica LP60, the Bluetooth one, which was good. I mean, it's a solid starter table, but I wanted one that kind of fit what I wanted more aesthetically, as well as just sounding better in general. So I upgraded to the Project Debut Carbon Evo. I got the one with the green platter. It's absolutely gorgeous. And alongside that, I picked up the Wharfdale 12s. I got them in the walnut. I love myself a good wood grain.
I love walnut. It's so beautiful. I mean, I like oak, but then I like the darker woods.
Yeah, definitely. And let's see, I had to get that all into a preamp. So I have the Project preamp, and that goes into, I was gonna get I'm spacing on what they're called, an amplifier or like a
cloud lifter?
A receiver. I like the Retro Pioneer receivers, but those things, I don't know, they're old and I don't want to deal with that. So instead I got a Sonos. I forget exactly what the piece of technology is called, but it's like the Sonos Hub or whatever. So it allows me to plug my record player into it, as well as stream like Apple Music into it directly. So it's pretty cool. I love it. It's made everything a lot more enjoyable, as well as kind of easier, honestly. So
okay, so then do you have any like hot tips that are both budget friendly and kind of easy to use for someone that would like to get into it, say tomorrow?
Man, it's funny because like I love collecting records and stuff, but I don't know a lot about, like, there's so much technical stuff out there. Like when I was looking into record players and speakers, audiophiles love to talk your ear off about the graphs, about sound distribution and all that stuff. But really all that I can say, and this is from experience, like you just have to find a place that lets you try stuff out, plug it in, see how it all sounds together. Like there's a place here in Seattle that I went to. It was Hawthorne Stereo. It's over on Ravenna, or in Ravenna, I mean. They just let me, they set everything up for me. They let me try out different components. All you really had to do was tell them the price point that you wanted everything to be. And I just kind of went from there. I mean, really, I feel like if you want to get started in vinyl, the best route to go is Audio-Technica. They just make the best like entry level stuff. Whether it's the LP60, which is, once again, I wouldn't say it's great, but it's a better starter than getting like a briefcase record player or something of the sort. If you can, I would say get the LP120, because that thing, first of all, it just looks really cool. And also it's like, if you're not planning on being like super into vinyl, like I may have actually gone overkill on what I got. Partially why I got all of it was just because I thought it looked cool and it made me more excited to listen to music. If you just want to listen to records, not think too much, get the LP120. That thing will last you like your lifetime and you will be happy. So yeah, I don't know. For getting into vinyl, I'm not nearly as snobby about that as other people that I've seen. I just say, find music you like listening to and get components that would make you excited to listen to it. And that's the most important part.
I agree. And I do think aesthetics do kind of go into it. So like people get a little bit embarrassed when they put too much money into aesthetics, but then that makes you excited about it. Like that is a core component. Like people get real particular about, when they're getting the next iPhone, it has to be in the color they want. Otherwise, I don't know. It's a whole thing.
I mean, what's the point of paying for something if you don't, like it, or even more so love it? I feel like if you're gonna get into something as a hobby, like spend a little bit extra and get something that makes you more excited about it. I mean, I guess use that advice sparingly, of course, but
that makes sense.
Like the amount of people that come to my DMs or my comments or whatever asking me like, what camera should I get? Especially if you've never really truly gotten into photography, literally just get a camera that looks cool and that you'd feel good about taking places. Like it doesn't have to be that deep. That's just kind of what I've carried into everything else. Like whether it's records or cameras or what else am I into? Like even like cooking, like you get pretty pots and pans. That makes life so much more fun.
No, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. That's a great way of looking at it. I've asked you this before when we met up that one time, but I forgot the answer, so I'm going to ask it again. No problem. Have you always lived in Washington your whole life?
Yes, I have. I was born and raised in Shoreline. I lived there till I was about 12. And then my family moved up north into this rural town. I lived there until I went off to college. And then I moved back down to Seattle. And then COVID hit. And then I moved back up to the rural town. Then I got a job. And now I'm back in Seattle. So it's been a lot of back and forth. But yes, I've always been in Washington.
Okay. All right. Right on. And then you attended Seattle Pacific University, right?
Reluctantly, I say yes. It's reaching the point where I refrain from telling anybody where I went to school just because of how disappointing that place is. All my homies hate SPU, but yes, unfortunately, I did attend Seattle Pacific University.
Okay, and what was your major?
I was a business administration major with a concentration in information systems.
Okay. And then back then, what was your long-term goal when pursuing that particular degree? Like, what was your thought process initially?
It depends on what point you ask me. I really had no idea what I was doing in college. I was good at school, but all the outside stuff, like plans and goals and career paths, were just kind of gone for me. Like I attended community college while I was in high school, so I only had 2 years of university post high school, and so I kind of had to make my mind up fast. And I was terrible at math, so that cut out STEM for me. I didn't want to be like an English major or something, so it was just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll go to business because at least, I don't know, it's a generally easy major, and I felt confident that at least I could get a job with it outside of school. My hopes were to use it and apply to whether it's like photography or video. I was kind of going back and forth on what I really wanted to pursue at the time. But generally speaking, I wanted to apply what I learned in business school to having my own business. And then at a certain point, my teachers all started telling me, hey, Matt, I think you're good at this. I think you would be good at being a data analyst. And I was like, I have no idea what that means, but that's better career advice than I've given myself. So I will run with it. And here I am now. I am now a data analyst. I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't love talking about my job online and stuff. But yeah, generally speaking, though, it's always been a goal for me to pursue photography in some capacity. And that is kind of what I'm doing today.
Any regrets about majoring in the field you did?
Yeah, I have a lot of them. I don't know. It's hard for me to discern what I would actually change if I had to like go back. Generally, I would say business as a major is a lot of the things that are wrong with society. I was unaware of that going into it because I was a naive 18-year-old who took on a vast amount of debt at a young age and just wanted to have a job when I got out. But there's a lot of things you learn in business school where, I mean, they do hope you don't apply too much critical thinking, because the more you look into the study of business, I feel, like I said, it's just everything wrong with society, in my opinion, of course. Profit motives. And yeah, I mean, really, business school is more or less just teaching you how to exploit, I guess. It may not be, you very much have to read between the lines on it, or else you will be kind of just another, I guess you could say, like pawn, because really it just trains you to be like a middle manager at some corporation. I don't know. I could go on a very much anti-capitalist tangent right now, but I will refrain from that for both of our sakes. All of our sakes, listener included.
There you go. Yeah, I can see the passion in your eyes about the subject. But yeah, okay. So then do you think getting a degree helped you in your current endeavors, or would you consider your degree to be more decorative than essential?
I think I would not be where I am now without it. I definitely learned a lot of things. Like, I'm thankful for some of the tools that I was able to acquire in business school. The best way that I could say it is I don't like the person that it tried to make me, but I did learn some valuable skills, at least, especially with like film photography. Like that's not cheap, I have a job that allows me to still shoot film, albeit not as frequently as I used to. Shout out Kodak. I don't know, especially with just like starting my own photography business, I was definitely able to carry over some of that information. But at the same time, a lot of it was still conceptual. And there's only so much that you can get out of just reading textbooks. So I don't know. I think it gave me a good understanding, but there's still a lot of, I guess you could say, like legwork that I need to do myself, because the nuances of running a business aren't learned through concepts. Like, you have to actually screw up enough yourself to learn from your mistakes. I don't know, being able to have a job like I do now, you know, it gives me security to pursue online stuff. Like, if I hadn't gone to college and just outright I was pursuing, you know, being a creator or a photographer or whatever title you want to give it, I think I would have been a lot more, I guess you could say, like, desperate, and it would have greatly impacted my decision making. And so by taking this path and having, you know, the securities that I do from having a degree and having a corporate job, I am allowed a lot more flexibility, and I'm allowed more, I guess you could say, freedom of choice. Because, you know, if I wanted to be a full-time photographer, then that might include me being like a graduation photographer, like taking grad photos or shooting weddings or something. And that's nothing, like, shout out to the people that do that. I'm not built for that by any means. I'm too anxious, especially for wedding photography. That's a whole other type of grind than I am capable of within photography. I like being able to just make stuff that I want to when I feel like it, slowly grow from there instead of having to really truly like dive into it, I guess. So yeah,
that's great. Definitely pace yourself. I can't do weddings either. I did one and it went well, but there are some tricky stuff. I always tell people, if you're going to do weddings, you need to know everything legal, everything, contracts need to be signed. Keep track of your paperwork, because people are very fragile on their wedding day. And I found that they may or may not change their mind about several aspects, which is why you need to get everything in writing, because whoever asked you to shoot the wedding would also like you to read their mind. And so that is why I stopped doing it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's so much pressure. You know, I'd rather not have my clients consistently be currently going through one of the most stressful days of their lives consistently. Like every time you shoot a wedding, that is, I mean, I can't speak statistically, but probably their first time getting married. And I mean, as like happy and like wonderful as weddings are, there's a lot of effort and money stress and stuff being invested into such an event. And if you screw up the memories from it,
there are no mistakes with weddings. You cannot make a single mistake. You need to overproduce, overshoot. I mean, I did it for a girl. We were really good friends in high school, which is why that worked out. So she wasn't a complete stranger. I'm very particular about whose wedding I shoot. And so far it's only been hers, and it probably will only be hers. I can't do that again. I've
had family ask me about if I could shoot, whether it's an engagement or a wedding or other special events. And I'm just like, hey man, I'd rather actually participate instead of being worried the entire time.
Yeah.
People get paid for that for a reason.
And some people are really good at it. I know a couple wedding photographers, like they were just made for it and they just know what they're doing and that's their whole career and they only do weddings. I just can't, but kudos to the people that can, because man, are they talented.
For sure.
The next thing that I wanted to ask is, how did you get your start in photography? Did that interest start in university, or have you always kind of been exploring that space in a way?
Yeah, I've always been a photographer, more or less. My family, or I guess I should say my parents in particular, growing up, they would always get me disposable cameras and I would always take pictures of the floor. I have some prints from a drugstore from when I was like 4, I believe. And it's literally just pictures of the floor at the pool, at the public pool, and a couple pictures here and there from, you know, family gatherings or whatever that I somehow managed to take. One of my very first like big purchases was when I was like 10. I spent, I think it was like $100 on a little Fujifilm point and shoot digital camera. That was all the money that I had as a 10-year-old. I took it everywhere. I took pictures of everything. I still have it. That alongside my Nintendo DSi were really the catalysts for me being like, whoa, I can take pictures of whatever I want. Especially like the portability of both of them was great. From there, you know, I got an iPod Touch at one point and I took pictures with that, took pictures on my cell phone, and then finally got a DSLR when I was 17. That was all of my money once again. I thought I was going to be a filmmaker.
I've seen a couple of your short films on TikTok. I scrolled all the way to the bottom because I was just bored one day. But like, I actually liked your stuff. The little stuff you did in your dorm room. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I
think you have a little bit of an eye for it. Maybe it'll
I don't know. For me, it's just a lot more intensive than photos. Like, I enjoy being able to take a picture and move on. But like, there's so much more thought that goes into shooting video that I'm just like, I'm a bit more reluctant to really get into it. But yeah, I spent all my money on that DSLR and I was like, oh crap, I don't know if I really like making short films by myself. And so I started taking pictures instead. I mean, really, here we are now. I got into film a couple years later, started making videos after COVID hit. Was living with my parents, started developing film in my bathroom. Yeah, I don't know. The last few years have flown by. Just in like a week, I will hit my 3-year anniversary of posting on TikTok. So.
Wow, congratulations. Yeah. That's awesome.
Thanks.
It's been, 3 or 4 years since COVID.
Yeah, 3 years.
Which is wildly insane because it seems like it was just yesterday. But I feel like everybody learned something about themselves during that really harsh time. Mm-hmm. And I think people kind of, whether they like to admit or not, came into themselves, whether it was a high or a low. COVID 2020 just wasn't that bad for me. Yeah. Not to say that I didn't struggle, but it wasn't the worst year of my life. 2022 was. Being 22 was. That just was not a good age for me.
Fair.
And I kind of saw that coming. I knew 23 was going to be lit, and I'm 23 now, and it's been lit. But maybe I manifested that by saying that 22 was going to be bad. All of my struggles and pains and difficulties just kind of happened when I was 22. The only goal I had for that age was most of my siblings were already married or working on their families, like starting on their first kids by that age, somewhere around there. And so my goal that entire year was to not get engaged, which is a weird goal.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I just want to be one of the first people in my family to not that that's bad. I love all my nieces and nephews.
No,
and
I know what you mean though.
Beautiful families, but I was just like, I can't imagine having a dependent right now. I can barely take care of myself. If I had a pet, I think PETA would be very aware of who I am. Not because I did anything wrong. They would just be like, you better not screw this up. Like, I've had 2 plants die. There's just no one give me a dependent. I can't right now.
Yeah, I definitely feel that.
You said you develop your own film, and then you said that you stopped. Do you do that regularly?
Developing?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Because you use Indisposable, right?
Yes. So COVID hit. I started making videos. I'd say about like a month into quarantine, I was like losing my mind. Shout out to Linus and his camera. He's one of the main reasons that I got into film in general.
He's so cool.
Yeah, I've been following him for a really long time. I think since like 2018. I remember I still have the screenshot actually. He posted this set of photos on Twitter, and I was like, holy shit, like that's what you can do with film. I want my photos to look like that. He was nice enough. I DM'd him. He gave me some information on getting into film. He's the reason why I bought an RB. Yeah, and he also was like showing himself developing film, and I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. Like, I thought I had to send it somewhere. And so yeah, I ended up, so my birthday's in May, and my parents were like, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, can I get a film development kit? And they were like, sure. I don't know why you would want that, but why not? They got me like the Patterson tank and bottles and stuff. I just started blacking out the bathroom at their house, turned it into my little dark room. And I did that for, that was like April of 2020. I did that until like December of 21, I believe. And then, yeah, I got in touch through TikTok with the Indisposable guys. shout out to them.
They're great.
Yeah, I never really saw that coming. I remember I posted some stuff about Sanctuary, the photo, not the book at the time. And those videos did really well. Kyle Rothwell from Indisposable, he followed me, and I was just talking to him, and he was like, hey, like we'd love it if you like gave us a try. Let us know what you think. Since then, I mean, I guess I probably have to disclose that I do work for them. I do like blog posts and some TikToks, not as much as I used to. But yeah, I was developing and scanning and all of that for the first like year and a half. And it's great doing it. Like you learn a lot. But I don't know. I didn't love the inconsistency. I wasn't that great at developing my own film. I've ruined plenty of rolls of film by doing it myself. And all the just little like dusts and hairs and stuff that would get on there just started to bug me. And they were like, hey, we'll develop your film for you. And I was like, say less. I mean, they just do like a great job as well. I've been using them since December of 21 now. I do miss the process of developing, but I don't know. My apartment doesn't really have the space to be a dark room. I don't know. I might get back into it at some point I might start just doing like black and white since that's pretty easy. Yeah, I would say that I think if anybody really wants to like truly get into film, then they should get a Patterson tank and start messing around. Maybe it doesn't have to be like a full-time thing. Like you don't always have to send it, but being a part of the process is really special. I didn't develop all of the photos for my photo book, but I did scan all of them. And even just that is a very special experience. So try it if you are interested, I guess.
Yeah, I think I did some research. It'll take about $500 down to get most of what you need.
I think you could do it for cheaper, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think my setup, like scanner included, was maybe like $250, $300.
Okay, there you go. For those of you that want to get started, anywhere from $300 to $500, depending on what you're looking at. But yeah, Indisposable's great. Kyle's great. I really need to talk to him more. I always enjoy his videos, especially when he does those camera duels.
Video genius.
Yeah, he's so talented. Shout out Kyle if you're listening. Probably not, but he's great. He's great. Definitely send your film to Indisposable. That's their name on Instagram as well. Matt has an affiliate link in his bio on his socials. So for people looking to get a break on developing.
If you want 10% off of film development, use code. I think it's Matt Rygh, Rygh.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's your current camera that you're shooting on right now? Like, what's your analog setup?
If I'm doing street photos, I'll use my M3. If I'm doing medium format, I'm using my Pentax 6.7. If I just have like everyday carry stuff, I have my Olympus XA. In my opinion, that's probably the best camera ever made. I also have a couple Polaroids. I think I might sell them. I'm not a big Polaroid person. I thought I would be. But generally, most of the photos that you will see... Oh, well, you asked analog. I do also have a Fuji X-T4 that I use, but that's not film.
Yeah, current setup in general.
Yeah.
You can include digital. I mean, Fujifilm digital, it's kind of in that realm of film in the sense that they have all the film recipes made to look like film, but on a digital device. Which is becoming a little bit more prevalent. Like I can't afford to develop any rolls right now, so I've got like 3 rolls of 120, a couple rolls of 35 millimeter sitting on my dresser. I'm saving up for a Fujifilm camera because now I have to go back to digital because when that price hike went up in December with Kodak and everyone, I can shoot film, but I have to wait to like clear a credit card and just have it all put on that because it's gonna be a couple $100.
Sure.
But I can't believe we're back to not being able to shoot film at an affordable rate or even buy the rolls. And it's because it became trendy and everybody jumped in. But now the people that were following our trend are gone and the actual passionate enthusiast individuals are still here. And the company hasn't brought down prices, which kind of irks me a little bit, but that's the boat I'm in.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I do think the Fuji stuff, at least like the film recipes, are a bit overrated.
I'd say that's a fair assessment.
I think shooting JPEG, I'm not a huge fan. Like, I'd like to be able to have, like, if I could shoot RAW, but have the colors be calibrated like a film emulation, then that would be cool. But I feel like, once again, like, get a Fuji if you enjoy, like, how it looks and how it feels and that sort of thing. I think a lot of people are really trying to force themselves into getting Fuji just because it feels like the digital alternative to shooting film. But I think just having a good process on Lightroom and having a camera that feels right to use is a lot more important than just having like film emulations. Because, I mean, really, if you want that, you could also just get some presets.
Yeah, that's fair.
So.
That's awesome. And then as far as travel goes, you documented your trip to New York City on your YouTube channel. What were you doing in NYC?
So last year, I met with my friend Justin. Justin is a jeweler. He makes both music-inspired jewelry as well as just normal jewelry that he thinks looks cool. And he posts that stuff on TikTok. I've been following him for a couple years because he made a Frank Ocean blonde ring that I really wanted. Unfortunately, I missed the drop. We followed each other at the beginning of last year. And since then, I've been doing all of his product photography. And lucky enough for me, he had an extra blonde ring laying around that he was so kind enough to give me. It's funny how that all worked out. He made a ring for this guy named Vukum. Vukum is so you could say like a Rolex dealer over on 47th Street in Manhattan. Justin wanted to meet up with him, give it to him. And so he was like, hey, like you should come with. And I was like, okay, say less. And we went out there, we met up with Vukum. We also met up with this guy named Augie Bello, who's a sax player on TikTok. Really, it was just a cool way to get out and meet people. Justin's not so much of a city guy as I am. And so we were able to just kind of roam the streets. I was able to go take pictures while we were walking around Manhattan. We really didn't have a ton of plans. It was just kind of the opportunity arose and we went. It was a good way for me to test new street photography skills because New York is a whole other beast compared to Seattle. It was my first time out there. I mean, I was in New York very briefly back in August, but I was only there. I basically just went there to go to the Met. And so this was my first time like walking around and like staying in New York. It was a cool experience, cool opportunity. Shout out to Justin.
So do you travel often? What are some of the places you've been to?
I wouldn't say that I travel often. Really, I mean, growing up, I went on trips, but I don't count a lot of those because I was like 10. I mean, ever since I've like kind of been on my own, I went to Los Angeles last year and I went to New York and I went to New Jersey with my girlfriend. But other than that, the prior year, I really didn't go anywhere. It was like my first year in corporate America. And for some reason, I let them convince me that it's like wrong to use vacation your first year of work. If you feel that way, by the way, that's bullshit. Don't let that feeling get to you. Use your PTO because it's there for a reason. So yeah, I really never took any time off before that. So I spent a good amount of my time off doing that sort of stuff. And it's been cool because I have been able to document it. I've made some YouTube videos about them. I feel pretty good about those videos. I feel like I could have done them better, but it was my first time. So,
I think you're underselling yourself. You did a really good job with those.
Thank you.
I mean, you say that you're not really a filmmaker, but your YouTube channel's looking good. Like you're doing, I think, a lot better than you think you are.
I appreciate that.
You're really good about showing your personality on camera. It's not so much manufactured or artificial. Like when you're watching a video, I can tell that's Matthew Rygh or, oh, that's so Matt. Even if we weren't friends in real life and it was just people coming from other platforms online that have never met you, you do a really good job of, in a very casual and friendly way, introducing yourself and making it feel as if whoever's watching kind of knows you in a way.
Oh, good. I'm glad you feel that way because it's very, like at this point, I've been online for so long and I feel like there's so many different versions of myself like over the last few years that are online that I'm just like, I don't really know who I am online necessarily. So it's good to hear it from an outside perspective because I'm just doing my thing. I don't know. It's very easy, like especially putting stuff out online to get lost in perception, both of yourself and other people, and to compare to everybody else. So I'm glad you feel that way because albeit I am very critical of my own stuff. So
I think we all are. And the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten was somebody said, be yourself. And I used to really hate that advice because it's like, well, obviously. But it's been 3 years and I've really meditated on that. And I think I'm finally starting to understand.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Have you ever left the country? Do you have any international experience or explorations? If not, where do you think you'd go?
I went to Canada when I was, I think I was 9. Other than that, I have not. I would love to go to Italy. But I mean, really, if I were to go internationally, I don't particularly care where I go. I'm pretty open. Anywhere in Europe would be cool. I'd love to. I'd love to go anywhere. I need to get out of this country.
So, is North Korea on the bucket list then?
Oh, totally. Man, ever since I watched The Interview in high school, oh yeah.
There you go. I know when you're shooting local and you're just documenting Seattle, you often go on photo walks.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because you walk around Green Lake quite a bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, really, I don't have that much to say about it. Are
the walks planned out in a way, or are they like more spontaneous?
I totally wing it. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll drive here and then I'll just walk around, but there is no method to any of that madness. I like to think of my photo walks as being sort of like I guess you could say like practice in meditation, I guess, because I don't know, maybe not meditation in like the traditional sense, but
no, I think that makes sense. There's so many ways to meditate, I'm finding.
Yeah, I think just being able to go out and be in the world and like open yourself up to, I guess, like whatever moments are provided to you, I think is a very beautiful experience. And that's really all that I try to get out of it. Like for a while, I would go out with like specific shots in mind, and I would take it and then I would come home and I'd be really let down that like it didn't come out how I wanted it to or whatever, or the weather wasn't quite right, or I missed something. But now it's like I just go places that I feel, I don't know, like called to be to, and I just take pictures of whatever intrigues me. I just kind of leave it at that. I like sometimes I'll be more methodical, or like I'll return to places, but generally like I find my best work comes from just spontaneous walks. Especially like if I have something on my mind, I find I will channel whatever emotions there are in me at the time into my photos. It's also just a good way to get out of the house.
Whenever you go on photo walks, they seem so aesthetic, but whenever I go on photo walks, in my earlier days, I used to get so frustrated so easily. I'm now finding a balance, and that's partially due to the fact of how cold it was when I was outside. So I was underdressed, and I think that just kind of attributed to my frustration. But in your videos, you look like you're having fun and everything.
Oh, are you talking about the YouTube videos?
Yeah, of the little walks, but
yeah,
and just in general, of course.
Yeah, those videos have been fun to make. I would say, I mean, traditionally, I don't go with anybody. Like all my photo walks are like practices, or what's the right word? Whatever. Me practicing being alone, one of the biggest parts of it for me, just like being comfortable being alone and just like out somewhere.
It's important to be with yourself.
Yeah, and photo walks, it's funny that you mention like getting frustrated at first, because it is oddly enough something that you have to get adjusted to. I started photo walks with friends, like my friend Michael Park. I met him back in 2020, and we would go out and we would take pictures. But ever since he moved, I've just been forced to be alone. Thanks a lot, Michael. We used to walk around. We would like drive to places that we had in mind, and we would do it. But now I'm a lot more inclined to just walk somewhere, and being able to do it with somebody else helped me get more comfortable with it, because it's a weird experience just going out taking pictures of stuff. You get really weird looks from people, and being with somebody else helps kind of alleviate some of that, or at least some of the anxiety, because you're not experiencing it alone. I love photo walks with people, but photo walks by myself are definitely my favorite, because it allows me to, like I said, it's a meditative thing. It allows me to kind of come back into myself, I guess. I always feel more like myself afterwards than before. And I think that's the most special part of it. Whatever photos you get from it are just a bonus, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and I really like that you said it's kind of a meditative process, because there are just so many ways to meditate. It's not necessarily the traditional crisscross applesauce sitting on the floor. I would say a photo walk, just alone in itself is definitely very meditative, very good for the soul.
Yeah, and especially if you go out and you shoot like medium format and you have it like on a tripod, like really like standing there, being present where you are and like thinking through like all of your settings and that sort of thing. It helps you be a lot more present. I guess you could say like aware, which I think is special, because I've gone on photo walks with a digital camera, but it's not quite the same, because you have like that immediate feedback. It's like I enjoy taking pictures of stuff that pretty like inconsequential. Like if I take a picture of a house or like somebody crossing the street or whatever, that's not something that I'm like, I need to see this right now. And so being able to take it, sit on it for a while, I'll usually send my film out in batches. I will forget about like 80% of the photos that I take, and then it's like Christmas morning anytime I get the film back. And so it's like it's nice not going back to the past immediately after you take a photo, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Have you worked on any fun projects or collaborations recently? I know you helped shoot the album cover ones, which we discussed. Have you done anything?
Let me think. I've shot a decent amount of project covers, or like music song single covers. I don't know why it took me so long to think of that. Yeah, I've been helping a lot of my friends out recently, doing some album/single artwork. Shout out to my friend Yanni. Recently, just a couple of days ago, him and our friend Matthew Rygh came out with a track called Paranoia. Jesus. And while I actually didn't shoot the images on the cover, I did design it. Also have some other stuff that'll be coming out in the near future. I don't think I'm technically allowed to say what it is because it's not my music, but I guess stay tuned for that stuff.
Is there any upcoming projects that you're excited about that you are allowed to talk about? Personal or even collaborative?
Not really. Honestly, I've been in sort of a limbo state ever since I put out Sanctuary, because that was like 3 years in the making. I invested so much like thought and time and energy into it that like once it was out, it took me a while to just like, I guess you say, recuperate or just like rest from that period, because it was so involved. I realized afterwards that's like I hadn't thought about any other projects that would like follow suit until after I released it, which I feel like is the right way to go about it. I don't know, but I've been workshopping ideas, but nothing is being worked on at the moment. I'm still brainstorming. I have a couple ideas that I like, but I need to continue to, I guess, like conceptualize it, make sure that I like the general direction. I don't know. I feel like there's two routes in my mind when it comes to like making books. And it's like you could either make a collection of photos that are just like by like happenstance, for lack of a better word, where it's like I just took all these photos and they feel cohesive, so I'll like put them together. Or you could go the route of like very intentionally going out, like I believe, what did Ralph Gibson call it? Having a point of departure, like going out and being like, this is my goal. I have an idea for both types. And I feel like probably the just like assorted images type project is going to be the most, the one that's going to come the soonest, because more or less it's easier to make. And I feel like I have the majority of it done already. As for the more conceptual project, that will take me God knows how long, but it'll be cool regardless. Unfortunately, that was a very vague description of everything.
That's okay.
I'm very prone to saying what I'm doing and getting like the rush of dopamine from that and then just like not continuing afterwards. So I'm very much practicing self-restraint right now. As much as I would love to talk about it, if I talk about something, that's like 75% of it. And it's like, I'd rather talk about it after it's done than before I've even really like started.
I completely understand. I'm definitely in the same boat.
Yeah.
The studies show if you share an idea with someone, you're less likely to do it. So I completely understand.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, Sanctuary is a photo book that was released not too long ago. When did it first occur to you that you wanted to make a photo book?
It was back in 2019, I believe. I didn't even really know that photo books were like an option until probably, it was like 2019. I was watching, I was in a real Willem Verbeek phase.
Who isn't? Everybody goes through that.
Oh God, I love Willem. I was like binging his videos, saw a video, I forget which book it was, but he put one out and I was like, that's crazy that he could just do that. And so I was like, I'm going to do that. And so that's what inspired me to start brainstorming ideas. And then I finally had the idea for Sanctuary sometime around like midsummer 2019. And I shot all of the photos over the course of like a month and a half. I think it was like July through September 2019. I had a lot of things going on at the time. 2019 was a very rough year for old Matt here. I was doing my best to process it all. I found that the best way that I could do it was by creating this project, Sanctuary. And I guess if I had to give a quick summary of Sanctuary, since I don't know if I'm ever going to release another version of it, I kind of like the thought of just having it be out and that being it. But Sanctuary is an exploration into how I feel about my hometown. I have very, negative feelings towards the place. It is my attempt at coming to terms with the emotions and like finding things that I can appreciate it, because I don't want to be the guy that just hates his hometown. I'd like to have good memories from when I was younger. This is my attempt at doing that. Yeah, it's 32 images, or maybe 35 actually. But it's just photos from around my hometown. I shot all the photos over the course of like a month and a half, 2 months, and it took me another 2.5 years to think of the right words to pair with it, which is pretty insane. Since it was my first one, I wanted it to be really good. I wanted to feel like more than just like being good from like a subjective outsider stance. Like I just wanted to feel good about it. And so that's why I let myself sit on it for a while. Yeah, that was released back in, I think it was October 28th, 2022 was when I started the pre-order process and shipped them all out mid-November to December. That's my Sanctuary experience. It was
a really well put together photo book. I was very impressed.
Thank you.
I'm glad it's in my collection.
I'm glad you like it. It was in the old brain for a long time, so I'm glad it's finally out in the world, and I hope it's like I said at the end, I hope that it can do for the reader even just a small amount of what it did for me, because it was a very cathartic experience.
Yeah, and anybody that knows you or your work knows that the photo, also the cover of the book, has a little bit of a sentimental aspect to it. So what is the story behind that photo?
Yeah, so the cover of Sanctuary is a photo that I've also called Sanctuary. It is the only image that I took that was after the fact. And by that, I mean like after the bulk of the bulk of the photos for the inside of the book were shot. I thought that these photos were going to be from my last summer being at home, but then of course COVID happened. I had to move back home with my family. It was not my last summer at home. I was working at this little burger joint in town. I would always take the long ride home. It would take me an extra like 10 minutes to get home, but I would take it so I could drive along the water. And after a while, I started recognizing the house and how there was the lamp in the corner by the water that would always glow this really nice, like orangey yellow shade. So I tried really hard to capture it. It took me about 3 months. I don't even know how many versions of it. I finally got it. It was this nice blue It was this nice blue hour photo with a good amount of like warmth coming from there. I just remember looking at it and having this like visceral experience of being like, this is exactly what I wanted. I executed on it well. It like emotionally resonated with me. And so it took me a while to like, because for me, it's like, I'll take photos that mean something to me, but I don't know what it means like in the moment. Like I have to like sit with it for a while. And so I was like sitting there and I was like, why am I having this like emotional reaction to this photo? Like, how is this any different? Just sitting with it and looking, it was like, it's very much, it feels very like safe to me. Because, you know, the outside world is so cold blue. And then on the inside of this house is this lamp that is emanating such a like warm shade. To me, I was like, what's the best way? Because I hate naming photos. Naming photos is top 3 worst parts of taking photos, in my opinion. I wish I could be a photographer in the 40s and just call it yellow car number 7, but I can't. So I had to come up with a name for it, and it just hit me at one point. I was like, it just felt like a sanctuary, because you know it's like there's the cold outside, but there's that one spot that I guess like calls to you and feels warm and safe. And I
definitely get that vibe when I look at it too.
Yeah. And it's crazy because like sharing it online, I didn't expect people to pick up on it. And maybe not to say that people have like explicitly put it into words, but like the way the reactions that I've gotten from that photo have very much been in alignment with how I feel and with my goals, which is really cool. I truly never thought that would happen. And so it's a very special photo.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. What was the process like when putting your first book together? Like, was it difficult or was it exactly what you thought it would be? Process meaning putting the actual physical book together.
I would say generally it went how I thought it would. I just use Blurb. Blurb is, I believe the program is Bookright, but it's through Blurb or whatever. They make it really easy. Not sponsored, obviously. They just let you drag and drop all of your stuff into place. I played around with it before I even started taking the pictures, just because I was like, how difficult would this be? Like, is this even worth pursuing? And I messed around with it. And all in all, super simple. All you had to do is drag and drop. When you're ready, you just upload it to their website and then you can order copies. I would say the worst part of releasing it was the shipping, because I did want to, like, for me, what makes it special is both that it's limited and that like I was able to sign and number them all. I didn't want to release it and just have it be like dropped on somebody's doorstep. Just didn't seem, it felt impersonal to do it that way. So instead I did a pre-order. I only printed the amount that were ordered. I had to order so I ended up doing 50 books and I had to order them all to my apartment. I had to go through, sign and number them. And then I had to repackage them and ship them. I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that I was able to add a little bit more personal notes to it. Like for the people that I shipped it out to, I was able to like wrap them and put these stickers on them. Shout out to my girlfriend, by the way. She was the one that did all of that. I know it like drove her insane. We were both up until like 3 a.m. just packaging them, because she would wrap them, hand them over to me. I would put them in the box. I would put the shipping label. I'd put the bubble wrap or whatever the like recyclable version of bubble wrap is. Yeah, I don't know. Releasing physical stuff is quite an endeavor, and I'm currently rethinking how I'm going to do it in the future. It was very special, and I'm very glad that I did it, no matter how much I wanted to rip my hair out at certain points.
Totally. And in your opinion, what makes this a photo book instead of a zine?
Well, zines are like magazine type, at least to me. For me, I feel like zines are they feel a lot more like editorial, like very much inspired by like fashion, you know, just general magazines. Zines aren't printed with like hardcover, at least that I'm aware of. I feel like for me, the thought of putting out a zine is cool, but it's an entirely different purpose, I guess, than a photo book. Like, to me, a photo book is almost like a music album, like the photography equivalent of coming out with an album. To me, a zine is more like coming out with an EP. It's like a slight distinction, but it's like, I think photo books are very much there to more or less like stand the test of time, or like, I don't know the right way to say that, but
they have
zines,
a bit more permanence.
Yeah. Meanwhile, zines are like, they're less expensive, they're less intensive to make and to distribute, and I feel like zines are also just like less serious. Not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like subject matter wise, like I feel like they're two vastly different types of projects. I'd love to make a zine. I have some photos that I'm sitting on that I might put out a zine for, but I guess we shall see.
Okay, yeah, and I think the EP versus album was a fantastic explanation.
Yeah.
Lastly, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently to get where you are now?
Oh man, I would say, if this might be cliche, but if you're talking about to get to where I am right now, no. Because if I'd done anything differently, I feel like I would be somewhere completely different. But I would say it's very easy in the world of social media to get very obsessed with performance and getting like a following and that sort of thing. But I would, if I could give my past versions of myself, geez. Thanks for honking, dude. If I could give myself advice in the past, I would say at a certain point, I began to stray away from making stuff for myself, and I started making things more for other people. And I don't think that is a sustainable thing. And I also think it's a hindrance as well, because it's like you start thinking a lot more short term than long term. Like, if you want to be an artist that people resonate with, you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And by putting yourself out there, that requires you to be vulnerable and to express yourself the way that to express yourself as yourself, if that makes sense. Like, if you start putting on like a character or whatever for the internet or for whomever, like, then that starts to be disingenuous, and it starts reflecting itself in whatever it is you're creating. And for me, like, I spent so much time trying to hype myself up to make like teaching photography videos. And I don't know why the hell I did that, because that like killed all the joy for me, because it was like kind of in the same sense as like, what's the phrase? Like, telling a joke is like dissecting a frog. If you dissect a frog, sure, you understand it better, but you kill it in the process or something like that. And it's like, I love photography. I love everything that has to do with it. But if you start taking that, your love for something, and pulling it apart, having to package it for other people, like, and not to say that like anybody who tries to teach photography is like killing their love for it. Like, this is just me, of course. But for me, it was like, I wasn't doing that because I wanted to, because like that's what I felt called to do, because I don't think I'm a great teacher, but I felt like it's what I needed to do if I wanted, to have a following. You have to teach people how, like, what aperture is. And that just wasn't fun. And I put all of my energy into that versus creating stuff that resonates with me and that may resonate with other people. And I really at the time, I just really wanted, I think I also just wanted to be perceived as like knowing what I'm doing. And I don't think that was necessary. And also, like, at this point, I don't give a fuck, like, what people think about me, like, as a photographer, because, like, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And so, yeah, a lot, like, especially these last couple months, I've been in, like, hardcore reflection and realizing that, like, making stuff for the sake of social media is not sustainable, and you just have to make it for yourself and use social media as, like, an outlet for, I guess, like, distribution. And, like, you can't think about it more than that, because otherwise you start looking at your analytics page. And once you start looking at your analytics page is when it starts going downhill, at least for me personally, because I started to look at the peaks on my graphs and being like, well, what was I doing? And trying to mimic, and I don't know. So I'm not doing a great job at taking a hiatus from social media, but I'm at least making stuff less on there, which I think is good. I'll come back at some point, but I'm trying to put my own advice into motion right now and just be better at kind of gauging how I feel about what I'm making before, during, and after making it. And because a lot of times I would record something and I would post it, and like 10 minutes later, I would feel this like immense amount of like guilt or shame, because it's like, I didn't enjoy making that and I didn't enjoy posting that. Why did I do it? It was almost worse if I would keep it up and then it would do well, because it's like, it's reinforcement. If you're not careful about the things that are reinforced, you start letting that be kind of the norm. And for a solid 1.5 to 2 years, I was just very much focused on, well, if I want to be a photographer, a real photographer, I need to have a following, and I need to, make content that's a whole other thing. If you start referring to it as content and not art or just videos, then that's probably a bad indicator of where you're going, because content is purely made to be consumed. But anyways, I'm going on quite the tangent, and I will just say, be careful about how you use social media and how you let it impact your self-esteem and your sense of creative direction, because I'm currently going through that right now. So I will leave it at that.
I'd say you summed that up well. No, definitely, that was great. What advice would you give someone just getting started or who wants to level up in their creative endeavors? And maybe you already said it.
If somebody wants to get started creatively or to level up creatively, I don't know. I would say create more than you consume, for sure, and be very diligent about what it is you are consuming. I've been reading Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. I haven't finished it yet, but something that he says is, like, as an artist, you need to practice and be very like diligent about being like a filter. And by that, he means like by consuming both, like, whether it's YouTube videos or movies or even just like being out in the world and like all the information that our brains take in, like you have, like as an artist, being an artist is like putting into practice like how you are able to filter out what the world gives you, being able to pick the right things to like influence you in that, like, you know, maybe it's watching a different type of movie or, you know, reading a certain type of book, being very intentional about what it is you're consuming and like how it impacts what you're making, I think is a very big thing, because I would say like 75% of being creative is taking inspiration from things. And I forget who it is that said it, but, you know, like good artists borrow, great artists steal, or whatever.
I remember that book. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name either.
Yeah. Just being able to be intentional about what it is you're taking in and how it's reflected in what you're putting out, I think is a a very important thing to do. I don't know a better way of saying that, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, if you're talking about like tips on photography, to quote my therapist, listen to your body. Like being able to understand what you're feeling and being able to interpret that and put it into whatever you're making it's tough, but it's a very important part of making art, and it's a very cathartic experience as well. I mean, yeah, because I find above all else, I just want to make stuff that is like emotionally resonant. Sounds pretentious, but that's all that I really care about. Like the amount of people online that I see saying stuff about like gear and editing and there's just so much stuff out there. And I think just being more focused on how you feel and how you're able to reflect that in the stuff that you're making is the most important part. And whether you're doing that with a $5 camera or a $2,000 camera, or hell, if you paint or whatever you do, that will always shine through far more than technical aspects. Yeah, that's about all I have to say.
All right. Well, you made it through the episode. That was the last question. Where can listeners find you?
I am on social media everywhere. I am at Matthew Rygh, MatthewRygh. I believe my Twitter has a underscore between the two because there's some lawyer in Los Angeles that has the same name as me. I'm battling that guy for SEO right now. But yeah, other than that, my website is MatthewRygh.com. I'm trying to put a lot more effort into that than I am to social media right now. Yeah, also working on YouTube. So yeah, check all of that out. And yeah, I think that's everywhere.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me do this. It was short notice, but I think that really worked out. And I really appreciate you being flexible and coming on. I think it's been a great conversation so far.
Yeah, I'm very glad we could do this. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a good time.
Yeah, of course. And lastly, I want to thank everyone who listened. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to give the show a follow on Instagram and Twitter at hustlinwithholly. This episode is also available via the official YouTube channel. That's Hustlin' with Holly podcast on YouTube. DM, comment, or tweet at me with any questions, comments, or feedbacks that you have for the show. Last but not least, if you want to help the show grow, one of the ways you can do so is by giving the show a 5-star rating. And if you want to take it a step further, you are more than welcome to leave a review. With that being said, stay happy, stay healthy, stay hustling. Peace.
All right.